I'd like to ask him if he has any comment on this at this time.
Well, he had the card ready even. He introduced you, but please state your name and address.
Ted Stranger, 2457 County Road.
It's not on. The mic's not picking up. All right.
Now, on that.
I can hear you. I don't know if they can in the back.
Ted Sander.
Okay. 2457 County Road 1330 at Moberly. I don't really have any extensive comments to make or anything tonight. We have looked at what has been recommended, and we are generally we're in favor of it. I think this suits the needs that we have as a group that's trying to form a warming shelter here. So, you know, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I don't have one for you, but does anyone have anything else? Thank you. Mr. Sander, I have a question. I'm sorry, Mr. Sanders. I'm looking at the, in the regs on number 8, it says a minimum of 1 toilet per 10 beds shall be provided. Do you assume that a warming shelter is going to have a bed for every person that they can have in a warming shelter? Otherwise, that number really wouldn't, I mean, you could have 0 beds and have a warming shelter. Could you not, Mr. Sander?
The regulations put a limit of 20 people
Right,
in the facility, including volunteers.
right.
So if there's a toilet, if there's 1 toilet for each 10 people, if you have a men's and a women's, you have the requirement, it seems to me.
I'm looking at the ordinance, it doesn't, where I'm looking, it does not state that. It says a minimum of 1 toilet per 10 beds. It doesn't think about people toilets.
We would probably assume that if they're rated for 20 people, that they would be sleeping there. There may not be a bed, but it might be a sleeping bag, I'm not sure. But we would count whatever they were rated for as their occupancy load.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Davis?
A follow-up on what that Mr. Sanders said. For clarification, is the 20-person limit is, the way I'm reading it is it's only 20 people for an overnight stay. Is it a 20 occupancy limit at any given time?
It's 20 people is what they were saying, like for overnight would be 20 is counting, like if you had 2 or 3 staff members. So they might have like 17 people that are coming into the shelter to stay all night and 3 staff people, you know, or whatever that ratio is. So, but it has to be like, it'd be,
But I mean, say somebody walked in there at 9 or 8 o'clock at night and there was 24 people in there with 4 of them planning on leaving. Would that be a violation?
if they were going to stay all night, yes.
But if they were planning on leaving, they were just there for counseling or some other service, to provide some other service, it would not be a violation.
Again, that's kind of back to your enforcement issue on the last question. I mean, we're not going to be standing there at the door checking.
I know, I
But, but technically, if they're sleeping more than 20 people there, yes, that would be a violation. But if they had people there for counseling or other purposes that were in and out, I wouldn't think that would be an issue.
Okay, I just wanted that clarified.
You can give them your cell phone number, they can call you.
I'll counsel you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, second reading.
An ordinance amending Section 46-3 and Section 46-118 and adopting Section 46-152 pertaining to temporary living shelter facilities.
All right, you've heard the second reading. Any further discussion? Hearing none, is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been motion and seconded. Roll call, please.
Jeffrey?
Yes.
Brubaker?
Yes.
Kimmons?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Kaiser?
Yes.
Motion carries. Ordinance is approved. Moving to number 9.
I have an ordinance establishing the speed limit for Shepherd Brothers Boulevard, and I ask that it be read twice to pass.
All right, there's a motion for the reading of the ordinance. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? First reading, please.
An ordinance establishing the speed limit for Shepherd Brothers Boulevard.
All right, you've heard the reading. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, second reading.
An ordinance establishing the speed limit for Shepherd Brothers Boulevard.
All right, you've heard the second reading. Any further discussion of the ordinance? Hearing none, is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Roll call, please.
Brubaker,
Yes.
Timmons,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Kaiser,
Yes.
Jeffrey.
Yes. Motion carries. Ordinance is passed. Moving on to number 10, which is a resolution.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have a resolution accepting a quitclaim deed from Thomas Jordan and Rama Jordan for real estate located at 705 Garfield. Has to be read once for consideration.
All right, you've heard the motion for the reading of the resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? First and only reading.
A resolution accepting a quitclaim deed from Thomas Jordan and Rama Jordan for real estate located at 705 Garfield.
All right, you've heard the first reading. Is there any discussion of the resolution? Mr. Rubaker.
Mr. Mayor, if I'm reading this correctly, it said earlier there was no liens on the property. However, the letter report from Town and Country Abstract dated April 7th, 2020 shows a judgment from MRMC, $5,922.37 plus interest. That was filed on March 2nd, 2019. And then there was a water bill showing up. Of course, that'd be City of Moberly for $112.49. And then there's also 3 years past due taxes. So I assume we have to pay all that.
We don't have to pay it, no. I mean, if someone would want to enforce that lien, they could sell the property. I don't think anyone's going to enforce that lien by selling the property because I don't think anyone would pay anything for it. I mean, it's kind of a practical consideration. We're getting it because we need to deal with the derelict structure that's located on the property.
We wouldn't be able to sell it, would we? Would that,
It'd be subject to those liens.
yeah, I mean, right. If you sold that lot, it'd be subject to that lien.
Yes, it would.
Who would buy that with that lien out there?
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't know what our plans are other than to, at this point, just to take care of the structure.
We've had some success in getting people to write those off when they see these situations, and so hopefully that will case in this one.
But we don't know that though, right?
We don't know that.
We're not assuming the debt by accepting the deed, if that is the concern. I mean, the property is still subject to the lien.
Right.
Further questions? Mr. Davis.
Do we have a plan for it? Are we going to demolish the building or?
That would be our plan. I mean, to take the building down, it's dilapidated and condemned, and so I don't see any chance of it getting renovated, and, you know, we're redoing the streets in that area, so, you know, it'll have good infrastructure, so it'll be, you know, something that if we can get cleared off, I think, you know, we can probably work towards getting it redeveloped or something productive for it instead of a dilapidated structure. Need to get the bad apple out of the barrel.
Okay.
Anyone else? All right. Hearing none, is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Roll call, please. Or excuse me, we don't have a roll call for a resolution. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed?
One opposed. Motion carries. Resolution is accepted. Moving on to number 12, or excuse me, number 11.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have a resolution accepting the bid and authorizing contracting with J.T. Holman Construction and Excavating LLC for demolition of 23 residential structures under the Community Development Block Grant Program.
All right, you've heard the motion for the reading of the resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? First and only reading.
A resolution accepting the bid and authorizing contracting with J.T. Holman General Construction and Excavating LLC for demolition of 23 residential structures under the Community Development Block Grant Program.
All right, you've heard the reading. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So move.
It's been motioned. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution passed. Moving on to number 12.
Mr. Mayor, I have a resolution accepting the bid of Biddle Professional Services for infield dirt mix.
All right, for the motion for the reading of the resolution, is there a second?
Second?
Been motioned and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? First and only reading.
A resolution accepting the bid of Biddle Professional Services for infield dirt mix.
All right, you've heard the reading. Is there any further discussion of the resolution? Hearing none, is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
It's been motioned, seconded by Mr. Kimmons. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution passed. And moving on to number 13, a resolution.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have a resolution amending Resolution R-953 and approving a lease agreement. And I ask that it be read once for passage.
All right, you heard the motion for the reading. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? First and only reading.
A resolution amending Resolution R-953 and approving a lease agreement with the Randolph County Democrats for property located at 220 West Reed Street and authorizing the city manager to execute said lease.
All right, you've heard the reading. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
It's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution carries. All right, that takes us to the appropriation resolution number 14.
Mr. Mayor, I have a resolution appropriating money out of the treasury of the city of Moberly, Missouri in the amount of $489,002.61. Has to be read once for consideration.
All right, you've heard the motion for the reading. Is there a second?
Second?
It's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? First and only reading.
A resolution appropriating money out of the treasury of the city of Moberly, Missouri in the amount of $489,002.61.
I hereby certify that there is sufficient money standing to the credit of the city of Moberly, Missouri, unappropriated in the several funds covered by this resolution to meet the requirements of this resolution. Certified Gregory L. Hodge, City Treasurer. Any further discussion of the resolution? All right, hearing none, is there a motion for approval? Motion by Mr. Kaiser, second by Mr. Kimmons. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. So, if I read my agenda right, is there anything else to come in front of the council? All right, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn to work session followed by closed session. There's a motion to that effect.
So moved.
It's motioned and seconded. Roll call, please.
Jeffrey?
Yes.
Brubaker?
Yes.
Kimmons?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Kaiser?
Yes.
All right, motion carries. We are adjourned from regular session, and we will move to the agenda for the work session. Is there anything to be added or deleted to the agenda for the work session, Mr. Crane? Okay. So we'll move on to number 1, receipt of bids for new plow and spreader for the F-350.
Yeah, this is just adding, as we replace our trucks, that usually I think it's a 2011 model truck that we replace this one with, and so the plows and press spreaders need to be changed out at the same time, and these are a budgeted item.
Okay. Questions about this particular item? Anyone opposed to moving it forward? All right, hearing no opposition, that'll move forward to the next meeting. Moving on to number 2, Conservation Community Assistance Program.
So what this item is a renewal of our lake management agreement. Essentially what they're doing is they're 25-year agreements. The last one came through in 2016, but Conservation is going statewide and renewing some of the language early. And so this is a first step. It's the 3 lakes under the park system as well as Sugar Creek Lake. And then what they'll look at doing is pending an announcement of federal funding, they'll work with us on an addendum along with other cities, and they package essentially projects in that addendum statewide and apply for federal money for all of those cities. So you'll see probably in another 3 or so months an addendum likely coming before you on the projects. But this first agreement is just dealing with the maintenance and stocking of lakes.
Okay. Questions about this particular item? Mr. Davis?
Yeah. What's the difference between the current agreement we have with them and this one?
I'd have to look back at the original. The only thing that stands out is they had in the original agreement, they'd had a project built into it. And so what that was is redoing the Rothwell boat ramp. But for the most part, what they changed is just some of the legalese in it. So that project was pulled out, and they like doing the projects as part of an addendum. So that'll potentially come before you along with some fishing piers and other projects pending government approval as a second step later this fall. So this is just a cleaner, basic lake maintenance, stocking, and the projects that were in the original agreement are pulled out.
Mr. Davis, go ahead.
The part in there about providing the policing of the properties and stuff, Sugar Creek Lake is outside of our city limits, is it not? So do we currently pay the ranger for that, or would that be?
So right now, if there's an issue at Sugar Creek Lake, we do have a lake ranger that's on duty Monday through Friday. He is not a law enforcement officer. If there is an issue out there, we do call the sheriff's department.
Okay. And do we pay that ranger, or is that paid by some other entity?
No, we pay our ranger. He maintains city property, the shelter houses, picks up trash, works on the roads, all of that.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
I guess my question is probably for Mr. Bach, but so all the deed of trusts that are listed in this background, if you will, what's the necessity of that? We have to prove that we have ownership of everything that touches the lake, or what?
Yeah, they started requiring that under the last agreement in 2016. So you'll see that in grants for that we apply to through DNR as well. They require all the deeds now. As I understand it, over the years they've run into situations with some cities where there was actually a land dispute.
I see.
So they just do that as.
So that handwritten deed of trust in 1910 that's why it's in there. Okay. Anyone else? Anyone opposed to moving that forward? All right. No one's opposed. We'll move that forward to the next meeting. Number 3, discussion of cooperative agreement for 911 fees and cash flow analysis consulting.
Yes, Mayor, we have Stacy Gross on the phone, or is he on video or just phone?
I can do either. I can be video or audio.
There we go.
You guys tell me what you prefer.
We're from Missouri. You got to show us.
So he's going to go through some of the analysis and consulting services he provides, and Stacy, if you're ready to take it away.
Yep. I'll go ahead and share my screen here and just show a. Let's see. Got to find the window. I think that should do it. So, can you see my window on your end, little screen?
right now.
Okay.
Just get ready to brag about the technology.
I thank you guys. Good evening. Thank you guys for allowing me to do this via technology. You guys, I'm up in the Omaha, Nebraska area, so I'm about 4 hours away. So a little bit of a haul to get down there. So this would be a good way just to kind of talk through kind of what you guys are seeing. I was actually referred. I've been doing some work on this for the ACCD 911 district, which is kind of straight to the west of you guys. They had the same issue. They were not seeing the revenues that we had projected for them. So we started to kind of dig into some of that to figure out what was going on. And I think that one of the county clerks there possibly had shared my info with Brian. So that's kind of how you guys came across me. Let me know when you can see on your end.
How long you got tonight?
I got all evening. I'm not going anywhere. I've only got 9 slides. In fact, the bulk of them talk about projects that I've worked on that I think are a little bit similar to what you guys have going on. And Brian did ask, he said, the first thing is this whole, the fees, why are we not collecting what we should? And the second part was just to look at kind of the workflow of dispatch, how you guys are handling 911 dispatching today. I understand the city answers all 911 for the city plus the county, but medical calls get transferred to the ambulance district. So just kind of looking at, is that the right process? Are there enhancements? Are there things that should be modified or changed? And I've done quite a bit of that. In fact, back to the west of you guys, I'm finishing up a project with Maryville, Missouri today. They've looked at consolidating operations over the past 10 years. They finally decided to pull the trigger on it. They had 2 dispatch centers, city and the county, literally a block and a half apart. The university there has a dispatch center, and then they were doing a similar thing of handing medical calls off to their ambulance district. At some point in the last couple of years, the ambulance district contracted with the county to provide EMD, emergency medical dispatch. So now they're set to be under one roof in about 30 days. The city and the county together, university will keep doing what it does because its dispatch does completely different things than the other 2 centers. So the city and the county are coming together. They're all going to be emergency medical dispatch certified staff. So just quite a bit of stuff going on that I've been involved with the past few years that I think I can hopefully bring at least share with you guys what's happening elsewhere and what folks are doing.
Stacy, we have your presentation up.
Perfect. All right, so a little bit about myself. So been doing this stuff for about 27 years, based up in Omaha. NENA is the National Emergency Number Association. It's kind of a certification group for 911. So one of the certifications I have is an emergency number professional. The other industry organization is APCO, and that's Association of Public Communication Officials. I'm on the executive boards for both Iowa and Nebraska. CCAM, another acronym, Corporate Commercial Advisory Member. So I've had my own consulting business since back in '92. I also work with Geocom, so I do these 2 things kind of side by side. Geocom is a GIS solution software company, so I kind of work for them, and then I do consulting work on the side. Have about 2 or 3 projects going at a time just because I like keeping in touch with that aspect of the business, and that's something that Geocom does not do. Experience, public safety technology systems, financial analysis and projections. PSAP is public safety answering point. ECC is Emergency Communications Center. So in the past couple of years, PSAP was always what we referred to as 911 centers. In the last few years, because of some things at the federal level, federal grants, et cetera, they've now began to call them ECCs, or Emergency Communication Centers. Consensus building, I mentioned the Maryville project. I've had a couple of other consolidation projects where just kind of building consensus between multiple groups, et cetera, and then coming up with, frankly, creative solutions. In this business, there's not one solution fits everybody perfectly. You kind of got to customize and come up, because the way you guys are doing business is different than what a Maryville and Nottoway County are doing. So we really need to sit down and figure out what you guys are doing and what is a next step for a better solution. So one of the things that I shared with you guys, so ACCD is a customer I've had for quite a while. I'm just kind of a retained consultant with them to help them work through issues, projects, etc. They passed referendum, I think, the same time that you guys did, and they had the same problem. The money wasn't coming in at all. They wanted to do the same thing. They wanted to keep their 15% tariff rate. They wanted to keep that in place and also charge the new device fee, the single device fee. The plan there is to take that 15% away once they felt like everything was where it needed to be on the other fee, and I think you guys have kicked that around. But one of the problems that I came across early on with their process was Department of Revenue didn't really have all the contacts. They didn't have all the carriers to send a notification to. Not to mention, I got a copy of the notification they sent out, and it was fairly generic. I think some of the carriers may have gotten it and kind of looked at it like, well, are we really supposed to do that or not? So what they had going on 4 to 5 months after they started was the one county clerk, or actually the county treasurer at DeKalb County, she would get all the checks and all the revenues directly. So she's still getting money directly, but meanwhile they're getting these pretty small checks from Department of Revenue. So it just looked like a mess. So they asked me to get involved. So one of the things I first did was reached out to all of their providers. Now they have a huge list. I think their list is 62 different telecommunications service providers. Little bitty ones that send a couple bucks a month to the big ones like AT&T, CenturyLink. So I started notifying all of them, and as well as talking to them on the phone. And that's kind of what I got, is that, this process is confusing. Are we supposed to collect both the 15% and the new fee? Are we doing one or are we doing the other? So we helped them work through and understand that process. In fact, I provided lots of them an excerpt of the statute, which was something that they hadn't received before. So they read through it, and they all interpreted it. Some of them interpret it one way, some the other way. So lots of communication with those folks. But as you can see, and it's kind of small on there, but I'm looking at my copy that the revenues gradually started to go up. As I notified folks, I would reach out to them. They'd say, yep, I received the notification. It's going to go on next month's billing. So the revenues went up, but there's still weird things. You can see on your end, there's a kind of an orange or a yellow and a green. Still to this day, we're seeing weird stuff in that they get, there's a 3% allocation on prepaid, which you guys should be getting, as well as the fee, the $1 per device. So one of the things that's weird is that the prepaid fee is just kind of 1 month they'll get it, the next month they don't get it. It almost looks like it's in every other month. I've talked to folks, and that prepaid fee is basically approved and pushed forward to DOR from the Missouri 911 Service Board. So I've talked to the service board, and in fact, the new director there is Brian Madewell. I've known Brian for years and years, and I talked to him, and he kind of confessed that, yes, that there's some issues here that we're having with DOR. So he said that the regularity and the timing of this is going to get better. So one of my hopes is that there was a service board meeting here a couple weeks ago. They actually talked about you guys in Adair County, I think, are having some extended issues with this. And so they're aware of it. They're doing what they can on their end and coordinating things with DOR. So my hope is that maybe things perk up here in the next couple of months if they haven't already. But one of the things that I would do is come on and basically evaluate who is all sending in money. Are they sending in the right amount of money? Provide some notification to them, provide some follow-up telephone calls, etc. But ACCD 911, I had projected, I kind of looking at industry stuff and looking at their population, I had projected that they should generate about $553,000 per year on both fees. To date, they're at about 373. So if you look at the calendar year, we're 67% through the year. They're at about 58% for their revenue. I've kind of projected out the rest of the months of the year based on what we're seeing, and they should get just beyond the 553. So I think they're gonna reach that projection, and this is the same exercise I would do for you all, is just kind of look at are the funds you should get, and you probably have. Somebody probably gave you a number of, this is what this new fee should generate. So we'll just kind of work back from that and figure out, is it coming through, is it not coming through? And one of the other things I found is there's lots of communication service providers DOR didn't know about. I'm trying to think of, there was a wireless company that didn't get notification. Northwest Missouri Cellular didn't get notification. So a lot of companies that just didn't even get the notification, probably because DOR just didn't have them, etc. So next slide. So the little bit more about Nottoway County, and as I'm talking a lot. You guys jump in with questions, but I talked a little bit already about their consolidation project. What spurred that along a little bit was the city of Maryville was going to build a new facility. The timing was right to put everybody under one roof. So that project's hopefully going to finish up the end of this month. The other one I mentioned to Brian was Oline and Fayette County, Iowa. So they have two 911 centers. If you look at a map, they're a really long county. When they first put 911 in 20-some years ago, they had to do two centers because they could not, with a reasonably tall radio tower, they couldn't page and communicate from one end of the county to the other. Well, with modern technology and IP radios, that's not an issue, but back when they put it in, they needed to have two, so they had two. Over time, there's a push from their 911 service board to consolidate everything into one center at the county. So they commissioned a traffic analysis, kind of a dispatch workflow, to basically look at how much traffic goes to that police department on the south end of the county. Could that traffic be absorbed by the other dispatch center at the sheriff's department? We looked at fees, we looked at staffing, training, all kinds of things. And it really just gave them some direction as to where they want to go in the future to consolidate those operations into one location, and not have to, when they go to purchase things, purchase two sets of everything. So that traffic analysis part of getting a handle on the tasks at each dispatch center, how much time things take, that I think was a little bit applicable to what you guys may want to look at. So the three things, again, I proposed, so the revenue review, the call flow, and the call handling. How are you guys doing that today? As well as just look at your technology. Are there, how old is your 911 phone system? How old is your voice logging recorder? Are those things, what can you think about in terms of a capital improvements plan of when do those pieces of equipment need to transition, be upgraded, et cetera? So just kind of a comprehensive snapshot of what's going on today, what could be done better. And I like to put this slide in here. I kind of liken 911 operations and dispatch kind of like an iceberg. If you walk into a dispatch center, you're seeing just a small part of what actually happens. And I'm actually just started a project here in Nebraska last week. I've got a county that's kind of in an emergency situation. They've lost some staffing. They are going to hand over dispatch to a larger regional center. But one of the things the regional center said is, well, how do we know how much workload this is? So I'm kind of doing a traffic analysis for them, and very small county, but once you start looking at walk-in traffic, check-ins with PD and deputies throughout the county as they roam around at night, etc., there's a lot of things happen there that you have to assume have to get picked up at another location. So just a lot happens that a lot of times you don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. With that, questions? Hopefully nobody fell asleep on your end.
Do you have an estimate of how long it's going to take to do this
I think I put in the original anywhere from 90 days to probably 3 months is what I'm thinking. And really, during that 3-month period, I kind of want to watch the revenue come in, notify the service providers, and then watch as that comes in. So kind of while I'm monitoring the revenue that comes through, kind of look at these other project elements. Spend some time. I'll come down and spend a couple days, sitting and observing at the police department as well as the ambulance district, and just kind of get a handle on the workload of both and the different tasks that they do and look at equipment. So I would say 90 days is probably a good estimate.
Anyone else?
I'm a little unclear what you said about the revenue that we have not been getting for this year. Do you think that we're going to be able to get that retroactive or not?
The story that I got on ACCD is basically the carriers that were not collecting the money. They basically came back and said, well, we weren't collecting it, so we can't remit it, but we will begin collecting next month. So if there's communication service providers that either A, they didn't get the notification from Department of Revenue, or for whatever reason, they're not gonna go back, months and say, oh, okay, well, we'll make that up and send you the check, because unless you guys can see that, hey, I've been, this was on my bill for 6 months, these guys didn't remit it, then we have another hammer to go back to them. But by and large, what they've said on the other project that I did was, we didn't get notification, or it went to the wrong place. And that was one of the nightmares that took the longest time, is to figure out who the heck to talk to, especially at the bigger companies. Now, I remember, I think it was Green Hills Telephone. Green Hills, you call and you talk to, and I'm making her name up, you talk to Marge, and Marge at the office does it all. She goes into their billing software, puts the bill on the bills, she cuts the check to Department of Revenue. Unfortunately, when you get into the AT&Ts, some of the Time Warner Cable, some of the bigger companies, it literally takes you a couple days to figure out who you're supposed to talk to and figure out what you got to tell them. So I guess until I dive into it and look at if we can determine who's paying and who's not paying, it's really kind of an unknown.
Anyone else? Mr. Crean, anything else you want to add?
No, other than the agreement that's before you is a cooperative agreement with the county and the ambulance district. And it does have language in there about trying to apply for grant funds to pay for this analysis.
So for it to take effect, all three parties have to be in agreement for the agreement itself.
Under the current agreement, yeah.
Anyone else? Mr. Brubaker.
Regarding the grants, who would be applying for the grants?
I think it technically has to go through the county. If I
Brian, which grant are you talking about? Is it the Missouri grant? This is 911 Service
the state
Board?
911 board grants.
Yep. I think the city could apply, and that's something I can help you guys with as well. They have there's 3 or 4 forms that you'll need to fill out. In fact, I helped Maryville is seeking some funding. ACCD is as well. So if I can help in any way submit that, I can certainly do that for you.
I just want to make sure we're all on the same page on that. Who's going to actually apply for the grant and make sure it gets done?
And that the agreement says that entities will cooperate in submitting the grant.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I see we have board members from ARCAD here. Would it be appropriate for them to ask questions of the consultant?
I would say it is. Mr. Milnes, you're the president. Why don't you be the question asker if you want to?
Say a Northeast football cell company has 30 customers, do they go back and bill retroactive?
Yep.
I think you asked that.
Okay, I think that's got it. Anyone opposed to moving this forward? All right, hearing no opposition, we'll move this forward to the next meeting. Moving on to number
Thanks,
4.
Stacy.
Go ahead. Is he done? Okay. still there.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. We'll be in
Yep.
touch.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Number 4, receipt of bids for the 2020 street striping project.
We only received one bid on this, which, usually we have a hard time finding a lot of street striping companies to bid here locally, but because of the cost, it's a little higher than we anticipated, but when we went with lower pricing, we've seen the quality of the striping as well. So, I mean, in past experience with this bidder, we've had really good results. You don't have to worry about clean, straight lines. We've had a lot of complaints with them in the past. With lower bids than this one.
We've had complaints with this provider as well.
Pardon?
We've had complaints with this provider as well,
Yes, we have on this, but not on it was on the space, the parking spaces, which he's going to revise.
which has not been fixed since the last time.
I've had numerous conversations with him, so,
It's
I don't-
been a year.
yes.
Yeah, okay. I'm not happy about it, and I really wish we had other bidders, so.
We always wish we had more bidders as well.
Okay, questions, anyone? Anyone opposed to moving that forward? All right, hearing no opposition, we'll move that forward to the next meeting. Move to number 5, an ordinance establishing the annual tax for imposition of a 911 tax.
Yes, Mayor, this is adopted annually for the 911 tariff that was adopted in 1994.
Okay, this applies, of course, to the city of Moberly, city limits, correct?
Yes, this is the landline tariff.
Okay, okay, the landline tariff. Questions, anyone? I assume it's staying the same.
Correct, yeah.
Mr. Kaiser, you have a question? No? Anyone opposed to moving it forward? All right, hearing no opposition, we'll move that forward. And we'll move on to number 6, resolution accepting the bid.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, these bids are for financing for a 5-year term of $75,000 for equipment at the Heritage Hills Golf Course. The 5-year term is to allow basically a Great Life to fit that into their budget as far as repayment to the city. So the low bid came from First State Community Bank at 2.39%. There is a bid tabulation included there.
All right, questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Davis?
Yeah. Mr. Hodger, is the Parks and Rec Board going to be responsible for paying this back? Or is Great Life going to be responsible for the payments?
Great Life plans to build it into the operational budget, the segregated operational budget for the upcoming budget years.
Okay.
So it'll be paid out of the operational funds of the golf course itself.
Okay, thank you.
So I understand that part, but originally we were talking about, or maybe we already did, replace the pumps. That's not Great Life's responsibility. So which part of this are they paying back? The whole thing or just the mower and UTV?
So they'll end up replacing the whole thing. So what we had to do to expedite the purchase of some of that equipment, the golf course operational budget doesn't have the fund balance like Parks and Rec does. So Parks and Rec essentially floated them the money. The loan money will make us whole, and then the payments will be built into the upcoming budget years of the Great Life operation. But because we're the ones with the fund balance, the Parks and Rec fund balance, we had to float them the money for the pump house renovations as well as the
Does a mower have a 5-year life?
The reason I'm hesitating is it depends on the terrain and how you run it. So the terrain out there is fairly rugged, but if they run it properly and take care of it, it should have a 5-year life, yes. The one they have now is, I believe, 8 or 9 years old.
Well, I hope this is not going to be a regular occurrence, because I don't particularly want to be the piggy bank for Great Life's working budget going forward. So if this is going to be, because the pumps had to be fixed and, a one-time type of thing, that's fine. I guess I shouldn't say, because I may not be here in 6 years anyway, but.
If I could clarify real quick, Great Life only gets paid a management fee.
Right.
They don't have their own budget. The city establishes a budget with Great Life. So the way Great Life makes money is through a management agreement that's a set amount. The operating budget is the parks budget. It's a segregated budget in the Parks and Rec department. So any funds that we pay out of that is solely through the revenues generated and the subsidy provided through Parks and Rec. So there's no Great Life budget.
Okay.
It's one budget. It's the Heritage Hills Golf Course budget. And of that amount of money, they budget annually, Parks and Rec and Great Life estimate about $30,000 to $40,000 in maintenance annually. So rather than spending $30,000 to $40,000 in this year on pump equipment and replacing quite a few parts with the sprinkler system, they would rather get that totally done this year because it is an emergency, and spend up to about $75,000. And if you take that $75,000 divided by about 5 years, you'll see they'll have, roughly $10,000 to $15,000 a year in payments, still freeing up about $15,000 to $20,000 in other maintenance costs throughout the year. So it's one of those things where we know there's a lot of items out there that need to be fixed, and spending all our money on one thing in 1 year could open us up to having no money available for other things that might happen out there.
Okay. Mr. Kaiser.
So just to clarify, how much money of this is coming out of the general fund versus the park fund?
Nothing's coming out of the general fund.
Fair enough. That's what I wanted. Okay.
I just have a comment.
What's that?
Go ahead.
Okay, I just want to thank the local banks for bidding on this. We really got some good competitive bids on the rates, and First State Community Bank, it looks like they were the winner at 2.39, which is a great rate. But we had 3 other banks also bidding, which is really nice to see.
Was that an advertisement or a comment?
No, just, it was close. I mean,
Okay. Is anyone opposed to moving that forward? Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, we'll move that forward to the next meeting. And we'll get down to the very last item, appointment of council member to Fire Chief Hiring Committee. I'm not going to assume, but as the mayor, I think I should probably be that person. So I would ask the rest of council for consent to be on that particular committee.
I agree with you. I think you should be on there.
Any other comments? Positive? Okay, we'll move that forward then. Or I guess we really don't have to move it forward, just, that's the way that will be. So is there any other, are there any other items in work session that we need to take up? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn to closed session?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Jeffrey?
Yes.
Rebecca?
Yes.
Kimmons?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Kaiser?